I'm a 35-year-old woman, and I've always been fine with how my life is. I don't have kids, never wanted them, and I'm financially independent. My job keeps me busy, and I enjoy traveling and having the freedom to live my life on my terms. But if you were at my family's annual reunion last weekend, you'd think I was some kind of villain for not popping out a baby or dedicating my life to chasing after one. Family reunions are supposed to be fun, right? A time to catch up with relatives, eat way too much food, and maybe laugh over embarrassing childhood stories. Well, mine is more like an endurance test. The moment I stepped into the house, I could feel the tension. The subtle glances exchanged between aunts, the too wide smiles, and the loaded questions. It was all there. I barely had time to hang up my coat before someone made the first jab. "You're still single, huh?" my cousin Patricia said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. Patricia, who has 3 kids and posts about them nonstop on social media, was holding court in the kitchen, showing off her youngest's latest school photos. Must be nice to have all that free time. What do you even do with yourself? I smiled politely and shrugged it off because, honestly, what's the point of engaging? But it didn't stop there. Another cousin chimed in, talking about how their lives really started after having kids. Then someone else asked, "Have you ever considered adoption? I mean, it's not too late, but it's harder when you're older." It was like they'd rehearsed this routine, a coordinated ambush designed to make me feel small. They'd say it all with fake sweetness, like they were trying to help, but the judgment was as clear as the lemonade on the table. Even my mom got in on it, casually mentioning that I was wasting my best years and how every woman should experience the joy of motherhood. My dad nodded along, throwing in a comment about how they would have loved more grandkids. I tried to deflect, mentioning my career milestones and hobbies, but it didn't matter. My accomplishments never held any weight here. The only currency they valued was diapers, report cards, and family Christmas photos. At some point, the topic shifted to my younger sister, Laura. Growing up, she was the golden child, beautiful, charming, and always the center of attention. If there was a spotlight, Laura was in it. But things changed when she got pregnant at 21, dropped out of college, and got involved with the wrong crowd. Addiction followed, along with a series of bad decisions. Eventually, she disappeared from our lives altogether. The last time I saw her was years ago, at some court-mandated family therapy session that ended with her storming out. No one had heard from her since. When Laura's name came up, the room got quieter. It was like everyone collectively decided not to dwell on it for too long. My aunt mentioned, almost offhandedly, that Laura's son, Jamie, was in foster care now. She said it like she was talking about the weather, detached, casual, and with zero emotion. I froze for a moment, trying to process what I just heard. Jamie. I'd never met him, but I knew he was about 10 years old now. The last I'd heard, he was living with Laura and one of her boyfriends. Apparently, that didn't last. "What do you mean he's in foster care?" I asked. My aunt shrugged. "Well, you know how Laura is. Her choices caught up with her. Poor kid. But what can you do?" I looked around the room, waiting for someone to say something, anything. But they all just went back to their conversations. It was like Jamie didn't even exist. I pressed my parents about it, but they waved me off. "You wouldn't understand," my mom said. "It's not that simple." The rest of the evening was a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about Jamie, a 10-year-old boy, abandoned by his mother, and dismissed by the very people who should have been there for him. And here they were, lecturing me about responsibility and family values. When I got home that night, I couldn't let it go. I started digging, trying to find out what I could about Jamie. It didn't take long to find some information. He'd been in the system for a while, bouncing between homes. The more I read, the angrier I got. How could my family just pretend he didn't exist? How could they sit around judging me while turning their backs on a child who needed them? The next morning, I called a social worker to ask about Jamie's situation. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. I knew it was going to be complicated and messy, but I couldn't stand the idea of him being forgotten. If my family wouldn't step up, then maybe I could. This wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It wasn't about silencing their judgment or making myself feel better. It was about Jamie, a kid who deserved more than the hand he'd been dealt, and I wasn't going to let him slip through the cracks.